What's going on YouTube? Thanks for tuning into the channel. Welcome to Oso Simplify, where I simplify life for you because life should be simple and easy. Like, comment, subscribe, dislike, leave comments, positive, negative, any feedback will do. But let's jump into this one. So, how to radically change your life in your 30s. Once again, all of my topics come directly from my life, from what I'm experiencing. As I speak to this, just know that in my YouTube account specifically, you can go back in history and look at my old videos. So I started posting about a decade ago. I think it was literally 2015 or 2016 that I made my first post. Actually, 2015 for sure, the summer of 2015. So actually, basically 10 years on the dot. And it's just very interesting to see the trajectory that my life has gone through. Now I am comfortably in my 30s. I'm 33, will be 34 in January. And a lot of things have changed if I just look back 3 years ago to when I was turning 30, when I turned 30, and then some of the things that I'm in now. So let me jump into this one. I'll get to the first point right now. So the first point in terms of how to radically change things is to get new responsibilities, new problems. This is something that, if you ever read any of Grant Cardone's work in the 10X rule, he swears behind this about getting new problems and things of that sort. So the first thing I want to just touch on, I don't want to make it seem like radically changing your life or the position that I'm in is radically easier than it was 3 years ago. A lot of things are more difficult. And number one, because I'm playing at a higher level and I've got new responsibilities, got new problems. So I did buy a house. It will be 3 years in September. It was a house that has a second unit. Also rent out the basement that's part of my unit. But it's a multifamily house. You know, if you know anything about the housing market in America, specifically New Jersey, that's right off of New York, which is New Jersey is one of the highest property markets in the whole country. A lot to put it on this, especially somebody who just turned 30 at that time. We were going through a pandemic and things of that sort. So just buying the house in terms of the amount of money that I need to pull in, month over month is significantly higher than it was before. And it just forces me to play at a higher level. I have to be more focused. I have to be more focused in my career. I have to be more focused financially. And there are benefits beyond that. There are benefits to having a house. I have a backyard I can just chill in. I have my own space, my dog thriving, having a great time. So I don't want to act like there are no benefits to this additional responsibilities. But the first thing to changing stuff is to just increase the amount that you're responsible for. And obviously you want to get something paid back within that. But that radically will change the trajectory of your thinking, the trajectory of your behavior, your routines, etc. Because now I have to cross a certain amount of money. It's actually made me put a lot more pressure on me to figure out a way to monetize this, because it's like, if I have to make a certain amount of money and I'm going to be dedicated to doing something, I would like it to be something that I'm interested in. Where before I had the house, I had a lot of money stacked away that theoretically I could just have been unemployed for like 2 years and would still have lived the exact same lifestyle I was living at that moment. So that was a big change. The other thing that I changed in terms of accepting responsibility, I mentioned that and you can see it on my page, I, do MMA, been training, was doing a lot of jiu-jitsu prior to the pandemic. But actually, summer 2023, so about 2 years from this date, actually also started taking fights. And at the point at which I started taking fights, I was actually laid off with the burden of these new responsibilities, running out of my unemployment that wasn't even really covering everything, going into debt, took fighting. So I was accepting all these responsibilities while I really didn't even have the understanding of how I would do it, which gets me to my next point that, first let me finish this. I am on track to become like a professional athlete at 33, 34 in MMA. Right now I'm 6-1. I'm going to be defending my title on August 9th in 2 weeks from now, my amateur title. Expect to win there. Expect to win one or two more times after that. And then from there, I mean, the next step would be professional. But the way my schedule looks now in terms of how much I'm working out, how much I'm training, working on the house, fixing things, having to be involved. I had to talk to a roofer the other day, talking to contractors. Now also growing my mind, where do I want to go from here? Do I want to invest in something else that maybe I can save up some money? You know, I've been riding my bike around the neighborhood. There's these fourplexes in this town called Winfield that's like a town over for me. That's like kind of my dream to, you know, invest in something like that. And then that could be, you know, my real estate portfolio to, you know, kind of retire off of. But playing the game at a higher level will radically change the way you think, change the way you behave, change your goals, and change the way you look at things forward. So I think that's been the biggest change. But once again, don't want to make it seem like everything's easy peasy, everything just fitting into place immediately. You know, there is a fair level of stress, but I wouldn't say the stress is much higher on a day-to-day level than it was 3 years ago. Because 3 years ago, I was doing a lot of things like drinking too much and hanging out with people, which will get to my second point, that I didn't need to, that were taking me away from my goals because I had too much free time within. So that's point number one. So point number two is commit to your future self. So this is a book. It's a guy that I've been listening to. He wrote a book called 10x is easier than 2x. And then he wrote a book called like Be Your Future Self Now or something to that effect. His name is Ben Hardy, I believe. But I really like the book and just the concept. And just the main idea is that you have a future self. So you have these goals that you've created, these responsibilities you're accepting. And then you can look at that end state of like who this person is. So when you look at that, what does that person do? What does a person who owns a house that's, you know, responsible, has everything, are they taking care of maintenance? Are they doing their lawn work? Are they letting things just overgrow? Are they making sure their tenants pay on time? Are they trying to fix things at a certain clip? When it comes to professional athlete, you know, how often are they training? Are they training in multiple disciplines? Are they watching tape on their free hours? Things of that sort. In terms of content creation, how often are they posting? Do you have a niche? Are you doing research? Are you like creating things that people want to see? But looking at the future self and really visualizing and living within that ideal of who that person is, then reverse engineering what does that person do on a day-to-day, and then do those things now. And that really makes things a lot simpler in terms of like what you need to do and how simplified your life is. So I was kind of going back to the point in my last piece, part one, on, you know, it's not easier, but things are a lot more simple because things are a lot more focused. That you're not spreading yourself so thin because you know what you want to focus on, and what you want to focus on is your ideal self, and imagining what does that person do and start doing those things now, because then it'll become a self-fulfilling prophecy that you're just being the person. And then I'll bring in reality transurfing and some of like the more esoteric types of philosophies that I think about, that this also puts you in, you know, a frequency on lifelines and alternative flows that are going to coincide with the things that that future self gets. So it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy effect. And if you look at this, you know, a lot of people don't really view how much they change in the right capacity. So if I look 10 years ago, and you can do this on my channel, for who I was, I'm living in really my first solo apartment, paying $900 on like a frat street in New Brunswick. You know, I basically was just a server in a bar back, trying to get trained to be a bartender, and then eventually started doing sales, which, you know, making less than even half on a base that I'm making now, and then on OTE and commission, significantly less. So looking at that growth, it's like in 10 years, that's how much I can jump, and some of these things weren't so directed that if I'm a little bit more intentional and really imagine my future self, I can make those jumps a little bit faster. But the idea of writing goals in the present tense and then really using the power of imagination, as Albert Einstein likes to say, the most powerful force in the world, and it's really the most powerful nation in the world. We'll play on words, imagination. Basically imagine, live in, and then think about what does that person do every day. Start implementing that in your life, and then, like, inevitably, you will become that because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know, if you work out every day, inevitably you're going to be in better shape. It's not really a question. It's consistency over time, doing the things you need to do. And the last point on this, in terms of what I think holds most people back, the thing that holds me back probably the most, is this idea of a tribe, idea of the relationships that you have with people today, and the way they view you today, but you don't want that to be affected, especially with social media. That's why I don't really tie any of this to my personal social media, because of that fear. So this is probably something I struggle with, but it's really just screw the tribe. Everybody around you is just as screwed up, just as lacking in direction, just as confused. And a lot of the things they say, they might not even believe. Think about how many times you say things to kind of validate to yourself what you believe in your head, but it's not a true conviction. It's just something you're throwing out there to kind of see what other people say. But you'll do that to yourself. But when you hear other people do it, you take it as, you know, the gospel or something that's real. Where it's like all these people around you, number one, aren't thinking about you nearly as much as you think. They're thinking about themselves. And number two, there is no tribe that's really being held together. When I look 10 years ago in terms of the people I saw day to day, it's very different than the people I'm seeing day to day 10 years from now. And actually, I think you can extrapolate that even further. Actually, you can minimize the time frame. So if I go back 2 years before that, it's like it keeps changing, and I don't anticipate that to stop anytime soon. Really there is no tribe. This is kind of like something that prehistorically was very important for humans, since you're going to live in a band and pretty much never leave that band until maybe you got married, depending on the culture and your gender. But other than that, it was like you're in one band for your whole life. Nowadays, people are moving in, moving out. You know, you go to somewhere like New York, most of those people are not going to be anywhere in that vicinity a year from now. So really just screwing the tribe, not worrying about what other people think, how other people think about you, and just not letting that at all enter your domicile in your mind in terms of like what you're planning to do, what you're doing, and letting it hold you back, because there is no tribe, there's nothing holding you together, and those people that you're really worried about what they think aren't thinking about you at all. And the last piece is to separate from both people and things that are not congruent with where you want to go now. So Albert Einstein has a saying that I'm going to butcher it, but it's like, what got you here is not going to get you there. Or the thinking that got you to the problem you have now is not the thinking that's going to come up with the solution. And there's two parts of this. So there's the part that's just a literal aspect, that like, you're going to need to expand your thinking. That's why adding new responsibilities, playing the game at a higher level is important, because that is automatically going to force you to think better. And it's a notion of power that I've learned from like the 48 Laws of Power, and it's true in my life when I look back, that whenever you raise your level or raise your standard, your game, it has to meet. Like the universe has to create equilibrium. So it's like if you decide to raise your game, you're either going to just completely give up or you're going to meet that level. There's no way you're going to just keep missing and stay doing it. So that's number one. You're always going to meet the level there. So meeting that level means a lot of the times getting rid of stuff. When I think back to like 3 to 5 years before this, what's mainly different is the people I speak to. There's two people, I don't need to name names or nothing, that were involved in my life that, for better or worse, I don't think it was like they were trying to do this, but they were taking me away from what I was trying to do. Whether it's useless conversations, whether it's, getting me into agreements that the person's gonna, back out of, and now I gotta figure it out. Whether it's having to deal with their emotions and what the fuck they think, when it's like, that's not very important to me and my goals, that's not the type of thinking that's gonna get me there. Also, me thinking that I can just, with the content creation, half-ass it and just not really put the full effort into it and think that I'm gonna get a result, that's just not the reality. So that's number one. So that's the first part. That's more of the more hard part. The second piece is a little bit softer, but it might be more difficult, is compassion with yourself. That where you are now, the way you thought needed to get you here. Like everything up to this point served a purpose. You're doing all these things that might have been negative at a point, but it was serving a purpose in your life at that point. Now there could be things that were just totally mistakes, but then again, it served a point and taught you the lesson that don't beat yourself up for what could have been. Use what you've learned and then move forward from now. That you have experience now. Like you lived some life if you're in your 30s. Like I can look back and look at good decisions, bad decisions, things I could have done, things like where in my 20s it was all like listening to what other people say, listening to things I heard on the internet, and just kind of like I was almost hoping that the things they were saying were true without any way of verifying the veracity of these statements, where now I know what's true and I know it's not. And if you're in your 30s, use that barometer that you do have a level of life experience, a decade of life experience as an adult that you can go back on and assess how things have changed and how things have worked throughout time. So I would say that's a very important piece as well. And the last thing is to kind of throw in this reality transurfing thought process and about alternative flows and things of that sort. So one of the ways that I think about the way the universe works, and it depends on whatever you believe in. If you believe in a sky daddy, if you don't, I personally don't if you wanted to know. But what I do believe is like there are a million of different possibilities of lives you can live. There's a life where I'm, bottom of the barrel, just a bum. There's a lifeline where, I'm, cream of the crop, rich, living the life of my dreams. And depending on the decisions I make, I'm either moving more congruently to the lifeline that's, more what I want, and then more towards a lifeline that's not what I want. And these decisions you make every day can lead you here or there. And it's about having compassion about how you've gotten here, and then just adjusting yourself so that you're following, that inner voice that's telling you what you should do. That's not the voice of other people, that you're following based on your life experience, based on how you know yourself, based on the idea that you have these goals, you're living as your future self, you're stepping your game up, and playing at a higher level, that you just keep moving in that direction that is tied to the life and the future self that you want, and then inevitably it will happen. And just being grateful for where you are at the moment, and in the day-to-day, because you don't want to live your whole life in like a pending mindset that I'll be happy when, Be happy now for how you've gotten here, for the clarity you have. This video has gotten to you, the clarity that you're getting, that you're even resonating and getting to this point, and then making that decision to, move to the direction you want to go and fall within those alternative flows that make the most sense. So that's really it for this one. I'm going to really try to be consistent with 2 a week on this channel. I've also created another channel. Right now it's called Doc Mollywop MMA. I might just change it to Dr. Mollywop, which is my MMA channel. Those are the 2 channels I'm really going to be doubling down on for the rest of this year. If you like the content, like, comment, subscribe. You didn't like, leave a dislike, negative comments, any feedback will do. And y'all know what it is. Until next time, peace.